Welcome to the blog of a Biosphere project. In this episode, I would like to talk about Alan Watts, or rather, I would like to let Alan Watts do the talking himself. I've selected 7 audio fragments, recordings of the narrations by Alan Watts. I like to use the word narrations rather than the word lectures, as the word lectures may make it sound like we're about to listen to something quite heavy-handed or academic or boring. And when Alan Watts was talking, usually something quite different was happening. Alan Watts always knew how to captivate his audience with his wisdom and his charisma and his humor also. Humor was always present. And all these things combined make listening to Alan Watts something quite different. Alan Watts was a philosopher, but that word also really doesn't capture who Alan Watts was or what he did. I would rather call him a sort of elder. He was a wise man who knew how to dig to sources of ancient wisdom that went beyond mere cognitive. He also knew how to reconcile very different domains and make a synthesis between seeming opposites, such as East and West, religion and science, thinking and feeling. And he always had a wonderful way of forging a new sort of whole or synthesis out of these seemingly disparate ways of being in the world. Alan Watts was also a sort of ecological pioneer. His thinking often centered around a search for our place in the world, in the universe, the nature of consciousness, the nature of self, and the relationship of the self to our environment. And in this way, his ideas were influential in the origination of the first ecological movements in the 1960s and 70s. And his influence reaches up to this day. A lot of thinkers and scientists and artists and politicians up to this day have been influenced, knowingly or not, by the thoughts of Alan Watts. So I thought it was time to bring him back into the spotlight, as we are facing very difficult times and we will need all the wisdom we can get. But Alan Watts looks at all these problems and conversions of crises already 50 years ago with a lot of wisdom, but also with a lot of humor. And that humor makes his approach so delightful at times. He always continuously points out that maybe we're taking everything too serious and that might be one of the causes of our problems. And he also uses his knowledge of ancient wisdom traditions to point this out. The need for pleasure and humor, also in times of difficulty, or especially in times of difficulty. So again, I would like to let Alan Watts do the talking. One of the reasons that I would like to bring Alan Watts into the spotlight is that one of the intentions of a Biosphere Project blog is precisely this, to shed some light on the connections between ancient wisdom traditions and contemporary science, and the way those connections are becoming quite surprising at times. I think what we will be needing most in this transition that is ahead of us is not only science but also wisdom and a lot of energy and a lot of humor. And Alan Watts, as I said, had all these three in large quantities: wisdom, humor, and energy. I wrote a short introduction to the life of and work of Alan Watts for this blog post. You can read it or listen to it. I included an audio version, but you can scroll right past it if you like and go straight to Alan Watts, because nobody can explain it better than Alan Watts himself. After the 7 talks of Alan Watts, there is a little bonus. I included a talk by contemporary scientist Neil Thies, who is a New York doctor. And he, in a mere 20 minutes, gives a very brilliant analysis of his own viewpoint regarding the nature of self, the nature of consciousness, and our place in the universe. And it's quite amazing to see how, from his contemporary scientific perspective, he reaches such a similar viewpoint as Alan Watts did 50 years ago. And this is something so that I will be coming back to quite often in this blog and in the project. These ever-increasing connections between what cutting-edge science is finding out and what ancient wisdom intuitions already stated millennia ago. If you like this blog and this video, you can subscribe to the newsletter of a Biosphere Project on the website. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can like this video. And I thank you for your attention. And I will see you in the next episode of a Biosphere Project blog.